The quantum matrix in my family's sword pulsed with the accumulated memories of 15 generations of Barretts as our dropship punched through New Harmony's atmosphere. Each burst of turbulence sent ripples of blue fire cascading down the blade, ancestral knowledge responding to the combat scenarios stored in its crystalline structure. "First drop's always the worst," Sergeant George Chesterfield said from across the hold, his quantum polearm humming in harmony with the descent thrusters. At 32, with 3 major campaigns under his belt, he had the easy confidence that came from years of hot drops and harder landings. The scars on his power armor told stories that would make veteran Marines blanch. "But you've got Barrett blood, Ollie. Your grandmother held the Perseus line with this same crew." I nodded, trying to keep my breakfast where it belonged as another burst of turbulence rattled our transport. My hand tightened on the sword's grip, drawing comfort from the familiar patterns etched into its quantum matrix. The blade had seen my father's last stand at New Austin, my grandmother's defense of the Perseus colonies, and 100 other battles that had shaped human space. "Save some for the rest of us this time." "Chest," Bart Old Bull Gray called out, checking the quantum matrix of his family's shotgun for the 3rd time since launch. The weapon looked ancient, all brass, and wood with barely a hint of the devastating technology hidden beneath its classical exterior. 7 generations of Grays had wielded it, each adding their own modifications to its matrix. "Last drop, you and that oversized letter opener of yours took all the fun. Wouldn't have to if you'd learned to aim that scattergun properly," Chesterfield shot back with a grin that took any sting out of the words. "Besides, someone's got to show the new blood how it's done proper." Jessica Longhorn Lockwood snorted from her position by the viewport, her quantum halberd casting strange shadows as she adjusted its power settings. "You both talk too much. Ollie, remember what they taught us in training: let the matrix guide you, but don't let it control you. Your ancestors can only show you the way, you've got to walk it yourself." I was about to respond when the dropship's internal comms crackled to life. The pilot's voice was tight with controlled tension. "Knights, we've got incoming. Glass Dancer air support is thicker than intel suggested. Multiple bodies on intercept vectors, energy signatures off the charts." Through the viewport, I caught glimpses of the battle raging below. The Glass Dancer's aligned ships moved like liquid mercury through the sky, their advanced energy weapons cutting through conventional forces with terrifying precision. On the ground, their troops shifted seamlessly between devastating ranged attacks and brutal close combat, their bodies refracting light in ways that made targeting systems worse than useless. "Time to earn our spurs," Chesterfield announced, rising to his feet as warning klaxons began to blare. "Remember your training, trust your matrices, and for the love of Texas, watch the impact." Cut him off mid-sentence. Something hit our port side hard enough to send the dropship into a spin. Emergency systems screamed as compensators tried to correct our trajectory. Through the chaos, I saw our pilot fighting with the controls, but the damage was too severe. "Brace for hard landing." The pilot's voice was almost lost in the howl of tortured metal. "Power armor to maximum." The last thing I saw before we hit was Chesterfield reaching for a support beam, his quantum polearm leaving trails of blue fire as it automatically adjusted to protect its wielder. Then everything went sideways, and the world became a symphony of screeching metal and emergency klaxons. We hit the ground like God's own hammer, and for a moment I thought we were done for. But Texan Knights don't die easy. Our power armor took the worst of it, quantum matrices adapting and redistributing force in patterns perfected over centuries of combat. When the dust settled, I found myself hanging upside down in my restraints, my family's sword still humming steadily in my grip. Around me, the other knights were already moving, checking equipment and helping each other free of the wreckage. "Sound off," Chesterfield ordered, his voice steady despite the blood trickling from a cut above his eye. "Everyone still breathing." "Gray, operational." Lockwood, banged up but combat ready. "Barrett," I managed, my voice shakier than I'd have liked. "Ready to dance." The sergeant nodded, then gestured to the hull breach that had once been our exit ramp. Outside, we could hear the distinctive whine of Glass Dancer weapons and the thunderous response of human artillery. "Well then, Knights," he said, quantum polearm igniting with familiar blue fire, "shall we show these dancers how we do things in Texas?" Around me, ancestral weapons hummed to life as quantum matrices synchronized with power armor. My own sword's matrix pulsed with generations of Barrett courage, ready to add my story to its memory. We were bruised, we were bleeding, but we were Knights of Texas. And as my father used to say before each deployment, there's nothing in this galaxy more noble than a blade with purpose. It was time to prove him right. The scene that greeted us as we emerged from our downed dropship would have broken lesser warriors. Glass Dancer aerial supremacy wasn't just evident, it was absolute. Their crystalline ships moved through New Harmony's steel-gray sky like schools of predatory fish, energy weapons painting the clouds in colors that human eyes were never meant to process. "Sweet mother of Texas," Gray whispered, his shotgun's quantum matrix humming in response to the threat assessment. Above us, a Commonwealth heavy cruiser tried to provide cover fire for retreating ground forces. The Glass Dancer's ships swarmed it like angry wasps, their weapons cutting through its shields as if they weren't even there. "Those ain't normal energy signatures. They're using some kind of quantum phase technology," Lockwood observed, her halberd's diagnostic system struggling to classify the threats. "Look how their ship's crystalline structure refracts the energy. It's like they're bending reality itself." A desperate transmission cut through our comm systems. "This is Captain Green, 45th Armored. We're getting torn apart down here. They're ground forces. They're not just shooting through our shields, they're walking through our walls. Request immediate support from any available." The transmission dissolved into static. Through my helmet's enhanced optics, I could see what he meant. The Glass Dancer's ground forces were unlike anything in the combat records stored in my sword's matrix. Their crystalline form shifted between solid and something else entirely, allowing them to phase through physical barriers while their weapon systems remained fully operational. Standard Commonwealth infantry were fighting bravely, but their plasma rifles might as well have been firing spitballs. "Barrett." Chesterfield's voice cut through my observations. "Your family matrix has encountered data from the Perseus campaign. What are we looking at for effective ranges?" My hand tightened on my sword's grip, accessing the quantum memories stored within. "Grandmother faced something similar in the gap," I reported, letting the matrix feed tactical data directly to my combat systems. "Their phase shift technology has a vulnerability when they transition between states. The matrix can track the pattern if we get close enough." "How close?" Gray asked, though his tone suggested he already knew the answer. "Blade range," I confirmed, and I swear I could feel my ancestors stirring in the quantum matrix. "They have to become fully solid to engage in melee combat." A Commonwealth Rhinoceros-class heavy tank chose that moment to demonstrate the futility of ranged combat. Its main gun, capable of punching through capital ship armor, fired a sustained burst at an advancing group of Glass Dancers. The aliens simply shifted phase, letting the energy wash through them harmlessly before returning fire. The tank's crew barely had time to scream before their vehicle was reduced to its component atoms. "Well then," Chesterfield said, his quantum polium igniting with that distinctive blue fire that had become synonymous with Texas nights across 1,000 battlefields. "Looks like we do this the old-fashioned way." He keyed his command frequency. "All nights, this is Sergeant Chesterfield. Form up on me. Standard combat spread, veterans pair with new blood. These folks wanted to dance. Let's show them how we do it in Texas." My armor systems synced with the others, quantum matrices harmonizing in patterns refined over generations of combat. Around us, more knights were emerging from their dropships, those that had managed safer landings than ours. Each one was a testament to centuries of martial tradition, their weapons humming with the accumulated knowledge of countless battles. "Remember," Chesterfield continued as we moved into formation, our boots leaving trails of blue fire across the blasted terrain. "These dancers think they've got the latest and greatest tech in the galaxy. But they're about to learn what every other would-be conqueror figured out the hard way." His polearm swept through a practice form that left after images in my enhanced vision. "There's nothing as noble as a blade, and no warriors nobler than Texas Knights." A Glass Dancer fighter screamed overhead, its weapon systems charging for another strike. But this time we were ready. This time we had something they hadn't counted on, weapons guided by generations of human courage and determination, each one carrying the souls of those who'd wielded them before. My sword's quantum matrix pulsed with battle joy as we began to advance, 15 generations of Barretts lending their strength to my arms. Around me, other knights moved with the same deadly purpose, their ancestral weapons leaving trails of blue fire in their wake. The Glass Dancers wanted to show us the future of warfare. We were about to remind them why some traditions never go out of style. It was time to dance. The first Glass Dancer to reach our line learned about Texas hospitality the hard way. It phased through a collapsed wall, energy weapon charging, only to meet Gray's ancestral shotgun at point-blank range. The quantum buckshot caught the alien mid-transition, disrupting its phase shift matrix in a spectacular display of crystalline shards. Just like skeet shooting back home, Gray drawled, his weapons matrix already adapting to the enemy's reformation patterns. "Except these birds shoot back." They certainly did. A barrage of energy fire forced us to split up, our power armor's quantum shields barely deflecting the worst of it. Lockwood took the high ground, her halberd's reach keeping 3 glass dancers at bay, while she protected a group of retreating Commonwealth infantry. The aliens tried to phase through her defense, right until they discovered that her weapon's quantum matrix could match their frequency shifts. Barrett. Chesterfield's voice cut through the chaos. On your 6. I spun just in time to see a glass dancer materialize behind me, its crystalline form refracting sunlight like a prism. Time seemed to slow as my sword's matrix engaged, 15 generations of combat experience flooding my neural interface. My grandfather had faced a similar flanking maneuver during the Battle of New Austin. My great-aunt had developed a counter during the Morgoth campaign. The blade moved before I consciously gave the command, blue fire trailing in its wake as it intercepted the alien's phase shift. The glass dancer tried to transition, but my family's sword was already there, quantum matrix predicting and matching the phase frequency. The alien's crystalline form shattered, its pieces trying to reform until a second strike disrupted its core matrix. Good form. Chesterfield called out, his polearm creating a zone of quantum disruption that forced 3 glass dancers into solid state. Your grandmother used that same sequence at Perseus. He made it look easy, decades of experience evident in every movement. His polearm swept through forms that had been old when humanity first reached the stars, each strike precisely calculated to counter the aliens' advanced technology. A glass dancer tried to phase through his guard, only to discover that some traditions endure for a reason. Knights, Titan formation. Chesterfield ordered as more aliens converged on our position. Star pattern Delta, veterans on the points, new blood in the gaps. Show these dancers why we train with blades. We moved as one, power armor synchronizing with our weapons matrices. Lockwood dropped from her perch to take the forward point, her halberd's reach establishing our perimeter. Gray held the right flank, his shotgun's disruption patterns forcing the glass dancers to stay solid or risk destabilization. I took position between them, my sword's matrix harmonizing with their weapons to create overlapping fields of quantum disruption. The glass dancers responded by bringing in their heavy units. Crystalline forms twice the size of a Commonwealth tank materialized around us, their weapons charging with enough power to level city blocks. But they'd made a critical error. They'd gotten close enough for our blades to reach them. Now this, Chesterfield said, his polearm leaving trails of blue fire as he stepped forward, is what I call a proper dance. His weapons matrix pulsed with accumulated combat data, analyzing and countering the aliens' phase shift frequencies in real time. Remember what they taught you in training, Knights. Show them what Texas Steel can do. We moved like we'd trained together for years instead of months, our weapons matrices sharing tactical data and adapting to each new threat. A glass dancer tried to phase through Lockwood's guard, only to be forced solid by Gray's shotgun blast, then finished by my blade. Another attempted to overwhelm Chesterfield's position, but discovered that his polearm's disruption field could affect multiple targets simultaneously. They're pulling back. Lockwood called out, her halberd dispersing a glass dancer that had tried to reform behind our lines. The big ones are trying to regroup. She was right. The aliens were retreating, their crystalline forms shifting erratically as they attempted to compensate for our quantum matrices. But something wasn't right. My sword's tactical analysis pinged a warning, the same pattern recognition that had saved my father's life at New Austin. Sergeant. I called out, letting the matrix guide my blade through a defensive form. They're not retreating, they're making space for their air support. The sky above us lit up as glass dancer fighters dove toward our position, their energy weapons charging to full power. But Chesterfield just smiled, his polearm's quantum matrix pulsing with anticipation. Right on schedule, he said, raising his weapon. Knights of Texas, show them why we're the best dancers in the galaxy. As energy weapons rained down from above, our blades moved in perfect harmony, 15 generations of combat experience guiding every strike. Because while the glass dancers had mastered the art of war, we'd mastered something far more important. We'd mastered the art of tradition. The glass dancer airstrike came in like a crystalline thunderstorm. Their energy weapons turned the sky into a kaleidoscope of destructive force, each blast carrying enough power to vaporize a Commonwealth cruiser. But they'd never faced weapons quite like ours. Break formation. Chesterfield commanded as the first salvo hit. Pairs only maintain quantum sync. Our star pattern dissolved into coordinated duos, each knight's matrix harmonizing with their partners. Lockwood's halberd spun in a dazzling display of energy dispersal, while Gray's shotgun forced incoming fighters to remain solid long enough for our countermeasures to track them. Then it happened. A massive blast separated me from the others, forcing me into a side valley where 3 Glass Dancer ground units had been lying in wait. Their crystalline forms shifted and refracted, creating duplicate images that would have confused any standard targeting system. But a blade doesn't need targeting systems. My sword's quantum matrix thrummed with ancestral knowledge as I faced the aliens. 15 generations of Barretts had wielded this blade, each adding their own experiences to its memory. My father's last stand at New Austin. My grandmother's defense of Perseus. Every battle, every duel, every moment of triumph and desperation, all of it stored within the quantum-forged steel. The first Glass Dancer struck with impossible speed, its form shifting between solid and etheric states faster than human neurons could fire. But my blade was already moving, guided by patterns recognized and countered centuries ago. The alien's energy weapon discharged harmlessly as my sword found its core matrix. Analysis complete, my armor's AI reported. Enemy phase shift frequencies identified. Calculating optimal belay that, I interrupted, something finally clicking into place. Disengage targeting assistance. Full manual control. The second Glass Dancer split into 3 identical forms, all firing simultaneously. Standard doctrine called for defensive positioning, letting our armor's quantum shields handle the threat. But as my blade moved through forms practiced by generations of knights, I understood what my instructors had tried to tell me. There's nothing as noble as a blade because a blade doesn't just cut, it learns. Each strike taught my sword's matrix more about the Glass Dancer's patterns. Each parry refined its understanding of their phase shift technology. Where targeting computers saw chaos, the quantum matrix saw music. Where AIs found random patterns, 15 generations of human experience recognized the rhythm of combat. The third Glass Dancer was the largest, its crystalline form incorporating technology that made our most advanced sensors look primitive. It moved like liquid light, its weapons charging with enough power to level mountains. But I wasn't afraid anymore. Because now I understood. My blade danced through forms that had been old when humanity first looked to the stars. High guard to low sweep, each movement enhanced by quantum fire but guided by human hand. The Glass Dancer's energy beams splashed harmlessly against patterns perfected over centuries of combat. Remarkable, the alien transmitted on an open frequency. Its crystalline form pulsed with colors that might have been respect. Your weapon's quantum signature, it adapts. Learns. How? I answered with my blade, letting 15 generations of Barrett skills show what mere words couldn't explain. The Glass Dancer matched me move for move, its advanced technology creating a display of light and power that would have made an AI circuits freeze. But this wasn't about technology. This was about tradition. My sword's matrix sang with accumulated knowledge as I pressed forward. Each strike built on lessons learned centuries ago, each parry informed by battles fought across 1,000 worlds. The Glass Dancer's perfect form meant nothing against generations of human determination. I understand now, I said, both to the alien and to the memories stored in my blade. It's not about the quantum matrix or the power settings. The Glass Dancer struck with devastating force, its weapon shifting phase mid-swing. But my sword was already there, guided by instincts honed through generations of combat. The alien's perfect form shattered against techniques that had endured since humanity's first steps into space. A blade is noble, I continued, remembering every lesson, every story, every scar earned in humanity's name. Because it carries not just knowledge, but wisdom, not just power but purpose. The remaining Glass Dancers tried to coordinate their attacks, their crystalline forms creating a prismatic web of deadly energy. But they were fighting more than just one knight now. They were fighting every Barrett who had ever wielded this sword, every lesson learned in victory and defeat. And as my blade moved through forms that had defended humanity for generations, I finally understood what my father meant before his last battle. There's nothing as noble as a blade because a blade remembers, and Texas Knights never forget. When I emerged from the valley, blades singing with newly recorded combat data, the battlefield had transformed. Quantum spurs left trails of blue fire across broken ground as Texas Knights pushed forward in perfect coordination. What had started as a desperate defense had become a masterclass in centuries-old combat techniques. Lockwood's halberd carved elegant arcs through the air, each swing forcing multiple Glass Dancers to solidify. They're adapting to our standard patterns, she called out, her weapons matrix already calculating new approaches. Switching to legacy forms. About time. Gray's shotgun roared in response, its quantum buckshot dispersing a crystalline fighter that had tried to strafe our lines. These folks need a history lesson anyway. Above us, the glass dancers' air superiority was crumbling. Their perfect formations broke against techniques honed through generations of void combat. Every time they developed a counter to one knight's style, another would switch to forms so ancient they might as well have been new again. Barrett. Chesterfield's voice cut through the chaos. Your matrix has the fresh data, share it through the network. My sword's quantum core pulsed as I authorized the transfer. Combat patterns recorded during my solo engagement flowed through our linked matrices, each weapon adapting and improving on the information. This was what made Knight special, not just our individual skills, but our ability to learn and grow stronger together. The glass dancers noticed the change immediately. Their ground forces attempted to compensate, their crystalline forms shifting through ever more complex patterns. But where they had programming, we had tradition. Where they had perfect form, we had purpose. Knights of Texas. Chesterfield raised his polearm high, its quantum fire casting shadows that danced like ancient warriors across the battlefield. Show them why we train with blades. We moved as one, each weapon's matrix harmonizing with the others in patterns refined over centuries of combat. Lockwood's halberd created openings that Gray's shotgun exploited. My sword followed through gaps created by Chesterfield's polearm. Each strike built on the last, 15 generations of human ingenuity proving stronger than alien perfection. A massive glass dancer command unit materialized in our midst, its crystalline form incorporating technologies that made their regular troops look primitive. Fascinating, it transmitted on all frequencies. Your weapons, they're not just tools. They're archives. More than that, Chesterfield responded, his polearm leaving trails of quantum fire as he settled into a guard position. They're our legacy. The alien commander's form shifted, creating a display of light and power that would have overwhelmed any conventional force. But we weren't conventional. We were Texas Knights. Our blades moved in perfect synchronization, each weapon's matrix contributing to a symphony of controlled destruction. Where the glass dancer expected resistance, it found adaptation. Where it sought weakness, it found generations of strength. Impossible, the commander transmitted as our combined assault breached its defenses. Your technology is centuries behind ours. Your methods are antiquated. That's where you're wrong, partner. Gray's shotgun punctuated the statement with a blast that disrupted the alien's phase shift capability. These ain't just weapons. They're our history. Lockwood's halberd swept through the opening, forcing the commander fully solid. Our tradition. Her weapon's matrix pulsed with patterns that had defended human space since the first colonies. My sword followed, guided by 15 generations of Barrett skill. Our soul. The blade's quantum fire left trails of blue light as it struck home. Chesterfield's polearm delivered the final blow, its matrix singing with centuries of accumulated combat experience. And that's something your fancy tech will never understand. The glass dancer commander's form shattered, its perfect crystalline structure breaking against techniques that had endured since humanity's first steps into space. Around us, the remaining alien forces began to retreat, their confidence in superior technology finally broken by something far more powerful, human tradition. Later, after the battle was won and the glass dancers had withdrawn from New Harmony space, I stood in the Knight's Ready room, cleaning my family's sword. Each stroke of the quantum-attuned cloth revealed patterns etched into the blade's matrix. 15 generations of Barrett history, now including my own contributions. Understanding finally hit you during that solo fight, didn't it? Chesterfield asked, his own polearm humming contentedly as he performed maintenance routines that were older than most colonies. I nodded, watching blue fire dance along my blade's edge. There's nothing as noble as a blade, I said, finally grasping the full meaning of those words, because a blade carries more than just power. It carries wisdom. And tomorrow, Lockwood added, her halberd pulsing in harmony with our weapons, another knight will learn from what your blade recorded today. That's why we train with blades, Gray concluded, his shotgun's matrix synchronizing with age-old maintenance patterns. Not because they're the strongest weapons, but because they remember. I finished, feeling 15 generations of Barrett Knights nodding in approval through the quantum matrix. And as long as we remember, we cannot fail, we said in unison, our weapons blew fire casting long shadows across the ready room floor. Because that's what it means to be a Texas Knight. Not just to fight, but to remember. Not just to win, but to carry forward the wisdom of generations. That's why there's nothing as noble as a blade. And that's why Texas Knights will always prevail. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to leave it a like and to subscribe if you'd like to see more. Feel free to comment and share it as well. With all that said, go on and check out the video in the top left. I think you might like it.